Despite the cold conditions, it was a relatively warm reception for both sides. Coming off the back of a membership drive by the Knights at Marathon Stadium, the club was swamped with more than 1,000 keen to sign up, and many stayed for the junior clash. But still, there was some in the crowd with divided loyalty. The Knights' successful Harold Matthews Cup-winning side hadn't played together since April, but hooker Michael Ennis remembers which way to the line, denied once, but once offered a second chance, it was Newcastle up 6-0. New Zealand then turned on the attack, but some bustling defence and blistering speed of Todd Mulville was too much. Once the winger was in the clear, it was try time once again. He even offered his own answer to the Harker as Newcastle went to a 12-0 lead. The young Knights began charging through holes all over the place. But so did the visitors. 5/8 Marcus Perinara crossing to get the Kiwis on the board. At half-time, it was 12-4.
After 2 days of play, the competition leaders won the right to play for the championship at Belmont. Overall leader James Nitties from Charlestown went into today's round 2 shots ahead of his nearest rival, Andrew Partridge from Muswellbrook. Leading the 17-year-old girls, Katie Yarrahout started out 3 shots ahead of Lauren Stensrad. Meanwhile, competition between the states will return later this year. The number 1 sports ground in Newcastle has traditionally played host to interstate rivalry, but last year meant an end to that era.
We missed out in the match last year because there was some criticism of the wicket, in particular that there was a lack of bounce in the wicket, and last year the Newcastle City Council, with the support of some of the sporting bodies, spent a bit of money on the ground and upgraded the wicket square.
And it seems to have been a worthwhile investment, with Western Australia and New South Wales due to play in front of a Newcastle crowd in December. But cricket fans will have more than they can take. The match will clash with the second test between Australia and the West Indies being played in Perth. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
With the first onset of the colder winter months comes the first cases of bronchiolitis. Most at risk from the life-threatening respiratory virus are newborns, especially premature babies.
Over the last 3 weeks, we've had at least at any one time 4 to 6 babies. So we may have 1 or 2 baby admitted every day, and 3 or 4 times as much seen in casualty. There'll be a lot more in the community.
The condition often starts as a common cold, but it can soon worsen to a cough, an inability to feed, and in severe cases cause the baby to stop breathing.
This is what happened to one of the babies yesterday, whose father resuscitated him, and now he's in intensive care requiring some assistance in his breathing.
Staff at John Hunter Hospital train parents of preemie babies in CPR just in case. But as always, prevention is better than cure.
Prevention is trying to keep the baby away from adult or other children who have a cough. It spreads with droplets. Keep the infants away from crowded places, minimal handling, the usual hygiene.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. Despite the promises of increased funding from State Health Minister Craig Knowles, according to the Australian Medical Association, real change is very slow. On a per capita basis, the Hunter is still seriously underfunded.
It's about the 3rd lowest funded per capita in New South Wales, and for a large area with a tertiary hospital there, that's an absolute disgrace.
But it's not solely the Hunter that's in crisis. A Senate inquiry into public hospital funding released just 2 days ago has found the New South Wales health system across the board is underfunded and in urgent need of reform.
It's just confirmed what we've been saying all along. We need more money in the system.
The AMA is now calling for the Howard and Carr governments to work together to solve the current funding inadequacies. It's also demanding a national independent inquiry into healthcare.
We need a total inquiry into the funding of health, both public, private, inpatient and outpatient throughout Australia. We've got to decide how much we want to spend it on health, what parts of health we want to spend it on, and then we'll have to look into where's it going to come from.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Last night's final training session was a low-key event. Tony Butterfield is back after a week of recovery and ready to test a troubled Cronulla outfit.
We're relaxed and ready to go.
After a big and painful match last weekend, Adam McDougall has also been given the all-clear. And while his knee injury means he's less than 100%, he's confident of continuing his recent form.
We're just really relishing the opportunity to play at home again. You know, it's second last home game of the year. It's something we're very much looking forward to, and hopefully cement a place in the top 8 this weekend.
The Sharks aren't so lucky. They'll go into tomorrow night's match missing a few regulars, including Andrew Eddinghausen, who injured his back during last week's clash with Auckland. But while the Knights are keen to capitalise on the Sharks' misfortune, it'll be a wary though confident side running onto the ground tomorrow night.
Sharks are strong. They've got a few of their key players out, but they've brought in some very competent reserves, so it'll be a tough game.
Meanwhile, there's still no word on Adam McDougall's future. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Greg Owens says he loves helping young kids at soccer clinics, but his passion for the game will probably be at its highest next week when he lines up for selection in the Australian under-20s youth team. It's the first time the 19-year-old Breakers star has had the chance to try out for a national team, and although he's looking forward to the experience, he's philosophical about the prospect.
There's always, like next year, done 21s and stuff like that, so, you know, there's always something else to aim for, so it's not very disappointing if you don't make it. It is, but you've got to look to bigger and better things.
Alongside him will be teammate Chris Tanchevsky, who was picked for last year's lineup and knows that patriotic feeling.
I think it's an honour for any person to be represented for their country, and I mean, when you put on the green and gold strip to go training, it's just a good feeling.
Meanwhile, in NBN soccer, Belmont Swansea host South Cardiff tomorrow, while Adamstown, Highfields, Edgeworth, Hamilton and Maitland all play at home on Sunday. The Eastern Districts clash with Singleton and the Wanderers' trip to the Bay highlight an interesting round in Newcastle Rugby Union tomorrow. While in Tui's Cup Rugby League, ladder leaders Waratah take on Cessnock in the feature local league match this weekend. On Sunday, old rivals West and South meet at Harker Oval. Catherine Turner, NBN News. Katie Yarra-Howitz began the final day of the championships leading the under-17s age group. Not far behind and keen to make up ground were Marissa Polius from Beverley Park, Lauren Stensred of Queanbeyan and Casey Henshaw from Hawk's Nest. Casey found touch early in the day, but it wasn't enough to beat Katie, who won her 5th state age title in her final year as a junior. Meantime, in the boys' competition, a battle loomed between Muswellbrook's Andrew Partridge and Charlestown's James Nitties. James's putting didn't let him down, and the rest of his game proved solid too. He won the championship in a playoff with Andrew after 2 holes. Catherine Turner, NBN News. Western Suburbs made their intentions clear from the start, running away to a 10-0 lead in the first 10 minutes. Brett Cullen was more than happy to extend it to 14. South Newcastle were desperate to put points on the board, but just couldn't translate their efforts into tries. But eventually they found a winning formula and quick hands. That sparked South's enthusiasm, who crossed again minutes later. With a slender 16-10 lead, Scott Connolly gave West some breathing space just before half-time, going into the break ahead 22-10. It was all Western Suburbs in the second. They never gave their opponents a look at the try line, keeping them scoreless while they piled on the points. Brett Cullen chipped in with his second 4-pointer, helping West to a decisive 48-10 victory. Catherine Turner, NBN News. Tumana Tahu has had nothing but compliments after his 2-try performance against the Sharks at Marathon Stadium last Friday night. It's a world away from the devastation the teenager felt after the two met in Shark territory in April, his performance then well below par.
It was pretty disappointing for me to just making a lot of mistakes in that, but I'm just glad I started.
So was the rest of the team, as Tahu rose to the occasion in a reshuffled lineup after injury ruled out Matthew Johns. Camera shy off-field, the 19-year-old let loose after scoring the first of his 2 tries. 5'8" Matthew Johns trained with the team this morning, still testing out the calf muscle strain, which has sidelined him for far more games than he'd like. The Knights take on the Tigers in round 25 this weekend down in Sydney. With just 2 rounds remaining, they look an almost certainty to make the final series. Victory in both would give them a greater chance of playing at home, and the crowds at Marathon Stadium have proved a compelling factor in the past. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
It's touchdown for the latest offering in Kids TV. The 4 brightly coloured characters are from the planet Zircos and have arrived on Earth ready to explore and learn. The Zircos Kids is the idea of Maitland-based writers Bob and Melva G. They say most of the outdoor adventures were filmed in the Lower Hunter, helping to make this program stand out from the rest.
And also we have lots of original music. All our songs are created for each episode and all our rhymes are created for each episode, so we like to think they're unique.
The 26-episode show has already been sold to 38 countries. It's been on the air in Singapore for the past 6 weeks, and so far the response has been encouraging.
Because there is an educational or subtle learning aspect to the Zircos Kids that parents quite enjoy and quite like.
Travelling the marketing road with the TV program are the soft toys and educational merchandise. There's even a website. And the Australian launch is scheduled for next week.
It commences on NBN, which covers quite an extensive area, 10 o'clock each morning.
Are you happy? Or? Yeah. There's room in the helicopter.
Two days after the biggest game of their lives, watching it on television is still a bittersweet experience for Dave Lubmans and Julian Morton. The New South Wales Cockatoos went into the Australian Rugby Shield final as favourites, but the Queensland Country Healers emerged victorious.
They played a very intelligent game. They kicked for the corners, played a lot of field possession. They were very hungry in offence and defence.
The Cockatoos were ahead 17-16 with less than a minute to go. A chip kick by the Healers came down with a lucky bounce, which led to the winning Queensland try.
The old cliches, it's not over till the fat lady sings, and she had a fair bit to say, 28 seconds to go.
Final score 23-17. Though deeply disappointed, the team captain did his best to cheer up his mates.
Trying to console the guys who may have felt responsible for losing, and chins up. Life goes on.
And so it did, at the pub for many hours.
Croaky voice, I'm still recovering from my post-match, I suppose, commiserations.
Catherine Turner, NBN News. In the past 10 years, the state government and road authorities have continually stepped up their road safety campaigns to curb the frightening regularity of road fatalities, and they say it's working.
We've seen a halving in the road toll in that time. I mean, we're making it quite clear that over the next 10 years we want to halve that road toll again.
The Maitland Road Safety Forum was targeting a specific issue today.
There's a high incidence of speeding in the Hunter region, and it is higher than the state average, which is a major concern.
But Hunter Police say that's to be expected, given Newcastle is the state's second largest city. However, all involved in road trauma and today's forum, government bodies, emergency services, the NRMA and the local community, agree that young drivers right across the state are most at risk. That's reflected in the new P-plate scheme, which came into effect on the 1st of July. Provisional drivers will be restricted to a speed limit of 90 kilometres an hour for 1 year, then 100 kilometres for another 2.
It's about making sure that they have the skills so that when they are on the road, they can take responsibility for their own safety and the safety of others around them. If that saves lives, then I think it's a damn good idea.
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
While Fennell and Edmonds Bays share problems like siltation and a lack of native vegetation, that's about where the comparisons end.
I think Edmonds Bay you could describe as very, very stressed, and I'm sure the local residents would agree to that.
According to a draft report by WBM Oceanics, excess nutrients, too little oxygen, and murky and slow-moving water are problems plaguing Edmonds Bay, but fortunately there are suggested solutions. While both bays require dredging and stormwater treatment systems, Edmonds may undergo a facelift, with 2 nearby creeks tinkered with to increase water flow, and even an artificial island constructed from sediment.
So we get rid of the sediments that are very rich in nutrients and are being released back into the water column. We get much better water movement through the area, and hence we can get the seagrasses back there and get the system back on track.
For now, it's back to more community consultation, with a $2.5 million remediation program expected to begin next year. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
people should make sure that they well and truly get their tickets in advance.
Nearby residents will testify this is the state's noisiest track.
We need to break our conversations, turn the television up, and basically stop what we're doing because we simply can't hear each other for a couple of minutes that the train is going past.
Noise reduction work has been ongoing along the Great North Line, but so far Greta is far from soundproofed. An earth mound is being constructed on the Singleton side of the track, and while it's too early to judge its effectiveness, locals are welcoming the attempt to return their lifestyles to normal. But even that is of little comfort for residents on the opposite side of the line.
They say that they've noticed an increase in the noise, which they say is reflection from the mound that's in place on the other side.
More mitigation works have been promised and included in the state government's budget for this financial year.
There is an assurance that the funding that's been allocated this year, some of that money, hopefully most of it, will be spent in this area, and that's subject to the task force's recommendations to the Minister.
Extra control measures will also go ahead at Branxton. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Well, if last week's intensity is a sign of things to come in the next month, then the semi-finals is going to be a tough affair. For the first time all year, we saw a tangible lift in the intensity in what has been a long, drawn-out year. Across the board in games featuring final contenders, there was a real step up on the physical side of things. But it was particularly evident in the Tigers v Newcastle and the Parramatta v Sharks matches, where David Penner again suffered neck injury, which could see the end of his career. The tackle by Andrew Pearce was dubious at best and received a 1-week suspension, which is a little hard to work out. I've got to say, Mitch Healy has been Cronulla's best and fairest, but delivered one of the worst elbows I've seen in recent times. Although he claims it wasn't deliberate, it still amazes me how he only got 3 weeks. And Danny Medeiros won't be starting this week for the Newcastle Knights. Club doctors ruled him out after receiving this hit from Chiriako Mesha. Danny's disappointed to be missing out on the Knights' last home game, but is looking forward to playing in next week's semi-final. And the play of the week is from Hazim El Masri, with a great little bit of footwork to stop Nathan Blacklock scoring this try. On to round 26 tips. Tonight's game between the Roosters and the Broncos will probably be the clash of the round, along with the Dragons-Eels confrontation. I think the Broncos will continue their terrific record and win at Sydney Football Stadium. The same goes for the Dragons, who also play at the Sydney Football Stadium on Saturday. Storm to beat the Tigers, Raiders to grab victory from their old coach Tim Sheens at the Cowboys' home ground. Warriors, Knights, Penrith to win their games. Good luck with your tips. Back to you, Rabs.
Anne Robinson and Beth Lean have spent more than 20 years wondering what's happened to their daughters, Amanda Robinson and Leanne Goodall. Questions which don't get easier with time.
No, it doesn't go away, never. It's there all the time. Just heartbreak and suffering.
We sort of at times think it's going along nice and steadily, but all of a sudden you've just got to be doing a little job or something and it sort of comes to you.
According to police, around 8,000 people are reported missing in New South Wales each year. Of those, 99% are found. But resources can only stretch so far. Strikeforce Fenwick, set up to investigate the disappearances of a number of Hunter people, is expected to wind up soon after 2 years of searches and inquiries.
It's always a disappointment when we can't actually reunite the people with their family, and we would like to be able to keep getting information that may assist us to keep trying to track them down, but unfortunately that information's dried up and so we have to stop sometime.
A hotline has been set up for any missing person to make contact with relatives or friends. The number is 1800 025 091.
If not the missing person, then perhaps someone that they know, and just let the family off the hook a little bit and let them know that the person's all right, and so give them time to try and understand what's going on.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.